Hey there, night owls and history buffs. Tonight, we're delving into the mysterious world of fortune-telling and omens. So before we begin our journey through time, take a moment to like this video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what we do here. Do you forget to let me know in the comments where you're retuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the globe. Now, dim the lights, maybe light a candle for that soft, flickering glow, and let's ease into tonight's story together. The crackling of the fireplace you hear in the background is here to keep you company as we explore the evolution of divination throughout history. When we think of fortune-telling, our minds might jump to crystal balls and tarot cards. But the practice of seeking glimpses into the future is as old as humanity itself. In ancient times, people looked to the natural world for signs and portents, believing that the gods communicated through these omens. Imagine, if you will, an ancient Mesopotamian priest standing atop a ziggurat, eyes fixed on the night sky. The movement of celestial bodies wasn't just a cosmic dance to them. It was a divine message waiting to be deciphered. These early astrologers believed that the positions of stars and planets could reveal the will of the gods and predict earthly events. But it wasn't just the sky that held secrets. The ancient Romans had a particular fascination with the flight patterns of birds. They called it augury, and it was serious business. Before any major decision, be it going to war or choosing a new emperor, the augurs would observe the behavior of birds. A flock flying to the left might spell doom, while a single eagle soaring to the right could be a sign of victory. As we drift further into our historical slumber, let's ponder the curious practice of hepatoscopy. Now, that's a mouthful, isn't it? It's the art of divination through examining animal livers. Yes, you heard that right. In ancient Babylon, priests would sacrifice animals and scrutinize their livers, believing these organs held the key to divine messages. The more lobes on the liver, the more favorable the omen. It's a far cry from reading tea leaves, but hey, to each civilization its own. Speaking of tea leaves, let's brew ourselves a cup of history and sip on the origins of taxiography. This practice of reading tea leaves began in medieval Europe when tea was first introduced from China. As people finished their cups, they noticed that the remaining leaves formed patterns. Soon, a whole system of interpretation developed. A heart shape might indicate love, while a ring could suggest an upcoming marriage. It's amazing how something as simple as drinking tea could evolve into a method of peering into the future. Now, close your eyes for a moment and picture a medieval marketplace. Amidst the bustling crowds and clamoring merchants, you might spot a figure hunched over a set of bones or stones. This is the art of clairmancy, divination by casting lots. It's an ancient practice that spans cultures, from the I Ching in China to the Norse runes. The idea was simple. Randomness could reveal the will of the gods or the threads of fate. As we drift deeper into our historical reverie, let's ponder the curious case of the Oracle of Delphi. For centuries, people from all over the ancient world would journey to this sacred site in Greece to seek guidance. The Pythia, the priestess of Apollo, would enter a trance-like state and deliver cryptic prophecies. These weren't your run-of-the-mill fortune cookie predictions. They could shape the fate of nations. It's said that even Alexander the Great consulted the oracle before his conquest of Persia, but not all forms of divination were so grand or mystical. Sometimes, the future could be glimpsed in the most mundane of objects. Take, for example, the practice of molybdency. This involved melting lead and pouring it into cold water. The shapes formed by the cooled metal were then interpreted as omens. It was particularly popular in Finland and Germany, often practiced on New Year's Eve to divine what the coming year might bring. As we meander through the corridors of time, we come across the fascinating world of numerology. The belief that numbers hold mystical significance dates back to ancient Babylon, Egypt, and Greece. Pythagoras, the the famous mathematician, believed that reality itself was built on the power of numbers. This idea persisted through the ages, with people assigning meaning to dates, names, and even the number of letters in words. Now, let the gentle crackle of the fire lull you further into relaxation as we explore the darker side of fortune-telling, necromancy. This was the practice of communicating with the dead to gain knowledge of the future. It's widely feared and often forbidden, yet it persisted throughout history. From ancient Mesopotamia to medieval Europe, there were always those who sought to pierce the veil between the living and the dead. As we drift closer to more recent times, we encounter the rise of spiritualism in the 19th century. This movement, which began in upstate New York, spread like wildfire across America and Europe. Mediums claimed to communicate with the spirits of the deceased, often through or automatic writing. It was a time when the scientific revolution clashed with age-old spiritual beliefs, creating a unique blend of skepticism and faith in the supernatural. The 20th century brought new technologies, and with them, new forms of divination. The invention of photography led to claims of capturing spirits on film. Radiostatic became a medium for supposed communication with the other side. Even the rise of computers didn't escape the human desire to predict the future. With algorithm-based fortune-telling apps becoming increasingly popular. As our journey through the history of fortune-telling comes to a close, it's worth reflecting on why humans have always been so drawn to divination. Perhaps it's our innate desire to understand the unknown, to find meaning in the chaos of existence. Or maybe it's simply the comfort of believing that our futures are written somewhere, waiting to be discovered. Whatever the reason, the evolution of fortune-telling and omens tells us as much about human nature as it does about our beliefs. It's a testament to our creativity, our fears, and our eternal hope for a glimpse of what's to come. As you drift off to sleep, surrounded by the soft glow of the fire and the gentle hum of history, remember that the future, like the past, is a tapestry woven from countless threads. Whether you believe in omens and prophecies, or prefer to forge your own path, the story of humanity is one of constant seeking, wondering, and dreaming of what lies ahead. So, dear listeners, as your eyelids grow heavy and your thoughts begin to blur, know that you're part of this grand tradition of curiosity and hope. May your dreams be filled with the whispers of ancient oracles, the rustle of tea leaves, and the endless possibilities that tomorrow brings. In the next story, we're delving into the fascinating world of religious pilgrimages in ancient times. Our story begins in the ancient world, where pilgrims embarked on journeys that would test their resolve, challenge their beliefs, and ultimately transform their lives. Picture, if you will, the winding paths of ancient Greece. Long before the rise of Christianity, devoted followers of the Greek gods would make their way to sacred sites like Delphi. The journey was no simple stroll through the countryside. Pilgrims faced rugged terrain, unpredictable weather, and the ever-present threat of bandits. Let's turn our attention to ancient Egypt, where the annual flooding of the Nile brought life to the desert and pilgrims to the temples of the gods. The most famous of these was perhaps the Temple of Amun-Ra at Karnak. The concept of tirthayatra, or a journey to a sacred place, has drawn countless seekers to holy sites across the subcontinent. One of the most revered of these is the city of Varanasi, nestled on the banks of the sacred Ganges River. Imagine, if you will, the slow procession of boats making their way up the Nile, laden with offerings for the sun god. Long before the rise of Christianity and Islam, Jewish pilgrims would make their way to Jerusalem 3 times a year for the festivals of Passover, Shavuot, and Sukkot. The air is alive with the sound of temple bells and the soft murmur of prayers. Pilgrims from all walks of life crowd the ghats, the stone steps leading down to the river. In ancient China, pilgrims would undertake arduous journeys to sacred mountains like Mount Wutai, believed to be the earthly abode of the Bodhisattva Manjushri. Some come to bathe in the holy waters, believing it will wash away their sins. The air is crisp and thin, filled with the scent of pine and incense. Whether seeking wisdom from an oracle purification in sacred waters, or enlightenment on a mountaintop. Pilgrims throughout history have been driven by a deep-seated need for connection with the divine. As you ascend the winding mountain paths, the sound of temple bells echoes through the valleys, carried on the wind like whispers from another world. Others come to cremate their loved ones, sending their ashes into the eternal flow of the Ganges. As you sink deeper into restful sleep, may you carry with you the spirit of those long-ago pilgrims, their courage, their faith, and their unwavering quest for something greater than themselves. Good night, and sweet dreams of sacred journeys yet to come. Their journeys of faith have shaped cultures, inspired art and literature, and left an indelible mark on the human spirit. Even in our modern world of high-speed travel and instant communication, the call of pilgrimage still resonates with many, drawing them to sacred sites both ancient and new. The temples nestled among the peaks seem to float above the clouds, their golden roofs gleaming in the sunlight. But the promise of divine wisdom from the Oracle of Delphi was enough to draw seekers from all corners of the known world. In your mind's eye, you can almost see the silhouettes of boats gliding silently across the river, carrying pilgrims and their hopes for spiritual enlightenment. But for those who undertook these sacred quests, the physical hardships were merely stepping stones on a greater spiritual journey in a world without modern conveniences. Where every day brought new challenges and uncertainties, pilgrimage offered a chance to find meaning, purpose, and perhaps even a glimpse of the divine. As you drift closer to sleep, imagine the sounds of sandaled feet on stone paths, the distant bleating of goats, and the whispered prayers of those hoping for a glimpse of their future. In your mind's eye, you can almost see the priests in their ornate robes performing sacred rituals that have been passed down through generations. The sense of reverence and awe is palpable, even across the centuries that separate us from these ancient pilgrims. The air is thick with the scent of spices and the bleating of sacrificial animals. As you approach the city walls, the gleaming white stone of the Second Temple comes into view, a beacon of faith rising above the surrounding buildings. The air is thick with the scent of olive groves and the smoke of sacrificial fires. In your mind's eye, you can almost see the gleaming white columns of the Temple of Apollo rising before you, a beacon of hope and mystery in a world full of uncertainty. But Greece wasn't the only ancient civilization to embrace the concept of pilgrimage. The gentle lapping of water against the sides of the boats might lull you further into relaxation as we continue our journey through time. The air is heavy with the scent of lotus blossoms and incense, and the rhythmic chanting of priests echoes across the water. As the massive pylons of Karnak come into view, you can almost feel the awe and reverence that must have filled the hearts of those ancient pilgrims. Now, let's drift eastward to ancient India, where pilgrimage has been a cornerstone of spiritual life for millennia. As you sink deeper into comfort, picture the narrow, winding streets of this ancient city. The flickering light of countless oil lamps reflects off the dark waters, creating a mesmerizing dance of light and shadow. As we continue our journey through the ancient world, let's turn our attention to the Holy Land, a region that has drawn pilgrims from 3 major world religions for centuries. Imagine the dusty roads leading to the holy city, filled with travelers from near and far. The sound of prayers and hymns fills the air as pilgrims ascend the steps to the Temple Mount. As we drift further into the realm of sleep, let's journey to the Far East, where pilgrimage has long been an integral part of Buddhist practice. Picture, if you will, the mist-shrouded peaks of Mount Wu Tai rising before you. In your mind's eye, you can almost see the colorful prayer flags fluttering in the breeze, each one carrying the hopes and wishes of countless pilgrims who have come before. As we near the end of our journey through the ancient world of pilgrimage, let's reflect on the common threads that bind these diverse traditions together. The paths they walked were often treacherous, the journeys long and arduous. As you drift off to sleep, carried on the gentle waves of history, consider the legacy of these ancient pilgrims. The crackling of our virtual fireplace begins to fade, and with it, the last echoes of the ancient world. Hey there, night owls and history buffs. Tonight, we're diving into the fascinating world of ancient deities and the people who worship them. Now, let's ease into tonight's tale of gods, mortals, and the complex tapestry of human belief. Close your eyes if you'd like, and let my voice guide you through the mists of time. In the vast expanse of human history, our ancestors sought to make sense of the world around them. They looked up at the stars, felt the rumble of thunder, and witnessed the cycle of life and death. And in their quest for understanding, they created gods, not just one or two, but a whole pantheon of deities, each with their own quirks, powers, and responsibilities. Take the ancient Egyptians, for example. I had a god for just about everything. Right? The sun god wasn't just responsible for that big ball of fire in the sky, okay? No, he was also the creator of all life, sailing across the heavens in his solar boat. Can you imagine the job stress? Sorry, I can't make it to the afterlife party. I've got to keep the entire universe running. Talk about a busy schedule. But Ra wasn't alone in the Egyptian pantheon. There was Osiris, god of the afterlife, who had the unfortunate experience of being murdered by his own brother, chopped into pieces and scattered across Egypt. Talk about family drama. His wife Isis, ever the problem solver, went on a scavenger hunt to put him back together. I guess you could say she really knew how to pick up the pieces of a broken relationship. Hey, let's not forget about Bastet, the cat goddess. Yes, you heard that right. A goddess dedicated to cats. It seems our feline obsession goes back a few thousand years. Bastet was originally a fierce lioness warrior goddess, but over time she mellowed out into a domestic cat. I guess even goddesses aren't immune to the allure of a comfy cushion and a sunbeam. Now, if we hop over to ancient Greece, we find a whole new cast of characters. Zeus, the big cheese of Mount Olympus, had a reputation for being a bit of a ladies' man. And by ladies' man, I mean he had a habit of transforming into various animals to seduce mortal women. Swan, a bull, even a shower of gold. Talk about commitment to the art of seduction. His wife, Hera, understandably, was not amused. She became the goddess of marriage and family, which is a bit ironic considering her own marital troubles. But I suppose dealing with Zeus's antics gave her plenty of experience in conflict resolution. Then there was Dionysus, the god of wine and revelry. Now, this guy knew how to party. His followers would work themselves into such a frenzy that they'd tear apart live animals with their bare hands. And you thought your college parties got wild. Why did people worship these gods? Well, it wasn't just about explaining natural phenomena. These deities served as a mirror for human society, reflecting our hopes, fears, and values. They were flawed, just like us, prone to jealousy, anger, and pettiness. But they were also capable of great love, wisdom, and compassion. Take Athena, the goddess of wisdom and strategic warfare. She represented the ideal of using brains over brawn, of solving problems with intellect rather than force. In a world often dominated by might, she stood for the power of knowledge and strategy. Or consider Hephaestus, the god of fire and metalworking. Born with a physical deformity, he was cast out of Olympus by his own mother. But through his skill and perseverance, he became one of the most respected gods. He was a patron for artisans and craftsmen, representing the value of hard work and creativity. These gods weren't just distant, unreachable beings. They were intimately involved in human affairs, often meddling in mortal lives for their own amusement or agenda. It's like a cosmic reality show, with humans as the unwitting contestants. But it wasn't all fun and games. Keys shaped entire civilizations, influencing everything from laws and social structures to art and architecture. The Great Pyramids of Egypt, the Parthenon in Athens. These weren't just impressive buildings. They were testaments to the power of belief, monuments to the gods that people thought controlled their destinies. And let's not forget the rituals. The rituals. from simple offerings of food and drink to elaborate ceremonies involving animal sacrifices. People went to great lengths to appease their gods. Imagine trying to explain to your neighbor why you're slaughtering a goat in your backyard. You know, just trying to ensure a good harvest. No big deal. But as time marched on, these polytheistic beliefs began to give way to monotheistic religions. The idea of one all-powerful God started to take hold, pushing out the colorful pantheons of old. It's like the universe decided to downsize its management structure. Yet, even as these ancient gods faded from active worship, they never truly disappeared. They live on in our stories, our art, our language. We still talk about Herculean tasks, Achilles' heels, and opening Pandora's box. These myths and legends continue to shape our cultural imagination, providing a rich tapestry of symbols and archetypes that we draw upon to this day. So the next time you're having a bad hair day, maybe blame Medusa. Stubbed your toe. That's probably Loki up to his old tricks. And if you're feeling particularly lucky, well, maybe Lady Fortuna is smiling down on you. As we wrap up our journey through the realms of ancient gods, I hope you found this little exploration both entertaining and soothing. Remember, whether you believe in one god, many gods, or no gods at all, the human quest for meaning and understanding is a thread that connects us all across time and cultures. So, as you drift off to sleep tonight, maybe spare a thought for those ancient people who looked up at the same stars we see, wondering about their place in the universe. And who knows, maybe Hypnos, the Greek god of sleep, will pay you a visit and bless you with sweet dreams. In the next story, we're diving into the depths of ancient Greek mythology, exploring how they imagined the afterlife. Now, close your eyes and imagine the gentle crackle of a cozy fireplace as we travel back to ancient Greece, where the line between the mortal world and the afterlife was as thin as a wisp of smoke. When your average ancient Greek thought about death, it wasn't just a matter of lights out and eternal darkness. Oh no, they had a whole elaborate system worked out, complete with rivers, ferrymen, and a three-headed dog. It was like planning a really complicated vacation, except you couldn't exactly pack your bags or choose your destination. Picture a grumpy old man with a beard that probably hadn't seen a comb since the Trojan War. His job was to ferry souls across the river Styx, the boundary between the world of the living and the realm of the dead. The ancient Greeks didn't have a clear consensus on how to get past this monstrous mud. Now, Hades wasn't just the name of the place. It was also the name of the god who ruled over it. Imagine if your landlord also owned the entire city you lived in, and you've got a pretty good idea of Hades' setup. Some said you needed to bring a cake to distract him. Others suggested music might soothe the savage beast. It was like trying to figure out how to get past airport security, but with more heads and sharper teeth. This was the ancient Greek version of hell, where the wicked were punished. Sounds nice, right? Wrong. Whenever he reached for the fruit, the branches would move away. When he bent to drink, the water would recede. Souls were said to drink from this river before being reincarnated, wiping away all memories of their past life. Well, that was the job of the three judges of the dead, Minos, Rhadamanthus, and Iacchus. These guys had the unenviable task of weighing each soul's deeds and deciding their eternal fate. The heroes in Elysium weren't just brave warriors, taunting those who embodied Greek ideals of honor, wisdom, and civic virtue. Kate was like a cosmic reward system for being a good Greek citizen. Kate was like a supernatural court system, but with no appeals process and sentences that lasted forever. While we may no longer believe in Charon or Cerberus, the Greek conception of the afterlife has left an indelible mark on Western culture. A new adventure in a realm beyond the living, where the deeds of your life determined your eternal fate. Maybe tonight, as you dream, you'll find yourself on the banks of the river Styx, coin in hand, ready to embark on your own journey through the Greek underworld. So remember to bring some treats for Cerberus, just in case. From Dante's Divine Comedy to modern films and literature, echoes of the Greek underworld continue to resonate. And remember, in the grand scheme of eternity, a good night's sleep is just a blink of an eye. Good night and sweet dreams of the afterlife. It was like a cosmic reset button, giving souls a fresh start in their next life. It was like the universe's cruelest all-you-can-eat buffet. And when I say punished, I mean punished. The Greeks had some pretty creative ideas when it came to eternal torment. Like the Egyptians, who filled their tombs with treasures and even servants for the afterlife, the Greeks were a bit more practical. From Homer's Odyssey, where Odysseus journeys to the underworld to seek advice, to countless vase paintings depicting scenes from the realm of Hades, the afterlife was a constant source of inspiration and contemplation. They might include some small, personal items, like jewelry or a favorite cup, but nothing too extravagant. It was more like packing for a long trip than furnishing an eternal home. There was Sisyphus, condemned to roll a boulder up a hill for eternity, right, only to watch it roll back down every time he neared the top. It was like the world's worst gym routine, okay? And let me tell you, he wasn't doing it out of the goodness of his heart. No coin, no ride. It was like trying to get into an exclusive club, but instead of a bouncer, you had a cranky boatman deciding your eternal fate. For many Greeks, it was also a source of wisdom and prophecy. The living could consult the dead through oracles, seeking guidance from those who had passed beyond the veil. It was like having a supernatural advice hotline, but with more ritual and less hold music. The ancient Greeks had different areas for different types of souls. It was like a cosmic sorting system, but instead of recycling and compost, it was based on how you lived your life. This was where heroes, righteous souls, and those favored by the gods got to spend eternity. It was all sunshine, flowers, and probably ambrosia happy hours. But getting into Elysium was harder than getting a reservation at that trendy new restaurant everyone is talking about. You see, the ancient Greeks believed that when you died, your soul did undetest float off into the ether like a lost balloon at a child's birthday party. It wasn't great. It wasn't terrible. It was just ... there. Imagine spending eternity in a waiting room with outdated magazines and you getting close to the vibe of asphodel. You'd think that was the hard part over, right? Wrong, because waiting on the other side was Cerberus, a three-headed dog that made your neighbor's yappy chihuahua look like a cuddly teddy bear. Cerberus was the guardian of the underworld, making sure that the dead stayed dead and the living stayed, well, living. Instead, it had to make a journey, and like any good journey, it started with a bit of cash. Family members would place a coin under the tongue of the deceased, a sort of otherworldly bus fare, if you will. This wasn't for buying snacks at the afterlife vending machine, mind you. It was to pay Karun, the ferryman of the dead. Now, Karun wasn't your friendly neighborhood Uber driver, but let's say you managed to scrounge up the fare and made it across the river Styx. Now, you're thinking, well, I'll just bring some dog treats and make friends with Cerberus. I'm afraid it wasn't that simple. Assuming you made it past Cerberus without becoming a chew toy, you'd find yourself in the realm of Hades. But the underworld wasn't just one big, gloomy cave. First, there was the Asphodel Meadows. This was where most people ended up, the sort of middle ground of the afterlife. Then you had Elysium, the ancient Greek equivalent of heaven. On the flip side, you had Tartarus, or take Tantalus, who was cursed to stand in a pool of water under a fruit tree. But perhaps the most intriguing part of the Greek afterlife was the Lethe, the river of forgetfulness. Now, you might be wondering, who decided where each soul ended up? The ancient Greeks also had some interesting ideas about what you could take with you to the afterlife. One of the most fascinating aspects of the Greek afterlife was how it reflected their values and societal norms. But the afterlife wasn't just a place of reward or punishment. The concept of the afterlife also played a significant role in Greek literature and art. As we drift toward sleep, Let's ponder for a moment the legacy of these ancient beliefs. So, as you close your eyes and let sleep take you, remember that for the ancient Greeks, that journey into darkness wasn't an end, but a beginning. And who knows? Sleep well, dear listeners, and may Hypnos, the god of sleep, grant you peaceful dreams of Elysian fields and heroic deeds. In TH Next Story, we're delving into the mysterious world of ancient magic, exploring how our ancestors believed these mystical forces worked. Now, let's ease into tonight's tale, accompanied by the gentle crackle of our virtual fireplace. Close your eyes, if you'd like, and let's travel back to a time when the line between magic and reality was blurred, and the unexplained was attributed to forces beyond mortal comprehension. In the ancient world, magic was not just a form of entertainment or illusion. It was an integral part of daily life, woven into the fabric of society. They believed that magic, or Heka, as they called it, was a fundamental force of the universe, as essential as the air they breathed or the Nile that sustained their civilization. To the ancient Egyptians, words held immense power. They believed that speaking something aloud could make it real, a concept that might sound familiar to anyone who's ever muttered, "I will not hit snooze again," to their alarm clock. For instance, if you wanted to harm an enemy, you might make a little wax doll in their image and stick pins in it. It's a bit like voodoo, but with more togas and fewer zombies. This concept of sympathetic magic wasn't unique to the Mediterranean, though. It popped up in cultures all around the world, from the shamanic practices of Siberia to the folk magic of medieval Europe. From the grand temples of Egypt to the misty forests of Celtic lands, people believed in the power of unseen forces to shape their destinies. Chinese magicians and Taoist priests believed they could manipulate this energy through various practices, including acupuncture, feng shui, and the use of talismans. They also placed great importance on the balance between yin and yang, believing that harmony in these opposing forces was key to health, prosperity, and magical potency. The church viewed most magical practices as the work of the devil, leading to some rather unpleasant consequences for those accused of witchcraft. The Babylonians and Assyrians believed in a vast pantheon of gods and demons, and much of their magic focused on appeasing or warding off these supernatural entities. Sacred stones, rare herbs, and animal parts were prized for their supposed magical properties. Whether it was the Egyptians with their powerful words, the Greeks with their gods and spirits, or the Chinese with their concept of qi, they were ways of making sense of a complex and often frightening world, of finding patterns in chaos, and of exerting some control over the unpredictable forces of nature and fate. Remember, whether you're drifting off in a cozy bed or lounging in your favorite chair, the magic of a good night's sleep is something even our ancient ancestors would have appreciated. So, close your eyes, let the gentle sounds of the fire soothe you, and may your dreams be filled with the wonders of history. Good night, sleep tight, and don't let the ancient spirits bite. While we may smile at some of these beliefs now, it's worth remembering that our own descendants may one day look back on some of our current practices with equal bemusement. Our ancestors all sought ways to understand and influence the world around them through what we now call magic. The ancient Egyptians were particularly fond of lapis lazuli, believing it had protective qualities. Meanwhile, in medieval Europe, mandrake root was highly sought after for its alleged ability to cure illness and bring good fortune, though harvesting it was said to be a risky business, as the plant would supposedly shriek when pulled from the ground, killing anyone who heard it. It's like the world's deadliest game of got your nose. They were big fans of protective amulets and incantations, sort of like ancient spam filters for evil spirits. Many practices we now consider magical were early attempts to understand and control the natural world. Astrology, for instance, was once considered a legitimate field of study, with its practitioners believing that the movements of celestial bodies could predict earthly events. It was like horoscopes, but with more math and fewer vague predictions about meeting tall, dark strangers. Alchemists sought to turn lead into gold, believing that the right combination of ingredients and celestial alignments could unlock the secrets of the universe. Diviners and medicine men were respected members of society, using their connection to the spirit world to heal the sick, predict the future, and maintain social order. It was like having a combination doctor, therapist, and weather forecaster all rolled into one. Talk about a multitasker. They believed in the power of runes, ancient symbols that could be carved or written to invoke various magical effects. Many Native American tribes believed in the power of spirit animals and vision quests. Shamans would enter trance states to communicate with the spirit world, seeking guidance or healing for their communities. It was like ancient Skype, but with more peyote and fewer technical difficulties. The god Odin himself was said to have gained knowledge of the runes through a painful ordeal of hanging from the world tree. Eat drizzle for 9 days and nights. Let's talk about dedication to your craft. Most of us can barely hang in there for a 9-to-5 workday. It was like chemistry, but with more mercury poisoning and fewer safety goggles. But that didn't stop people from believing in and practicing magic. It just drove it underground. But how exactly did they think this magic worked? Well, buckle up, because we're about to embark on a drowsy journey through the beliefs and practices of our ancestors. They believed that by knowing the true names of gods and spirits, they could command these entities to do their bidding. Imagine if you could summon the spirit of your coffee maker just by knowing its secret name. Mornings would be a breeze, wouldn't they? Let's start with the Egyptians, masters of mystery and pioneers of magical thinking. Egyptian priests and magicians were thought to harness this power through intricate spells and rituals. Moving northward to the lands of the ancient Greeks and Romans, we find a slightly different take on magical workings. These civilizations believed in a world teeming with gods, nymphs, and spirits, all of whom could be appealed to or manipulated through various magical practices. Greek and Roman magicians were less about grand cosmic forces and more about practical results. Love spells, curses on enemies, and charms for good fortune were their bread and butter. One popular form of magic in the Greco-Roman world was sympathetic magic, the idea that like affects like. Speaking of medieval Europe, let's fast forward a bit to the Middle Ages, where magic took on a decidedly more sinister reputation. Medieval European magic often involved a mix of Christian prayers, ancient pagan practices, and a dash of pseudoscience. Meanwhile, in the far reaches of Scandinavia, the Norse had their own magical traditions. Across the ocean in the Americas, indigenous cultures had their own rich traditions of magical thinking. In ancient China, magic was closely tied to the concept of qi, the vital energy that flows through all things. Let's drift over to the sun-baked lands of ancient Mesopotamia, where magic and religion was so intertwined, it was hard to tell where one ended and the other began. In Africa, magical practices varied widely across the continent, but many cultures shared a belief in the power of ancestors and spirits to influence the living world. As we meander through these ancient beliefs, it's worth noting that the line between magic and early science was often blurry. In many cultures, the power of magic was thought to reside in specific objects or substances. As we near the end of our drowsy journey through the magical beliefs of the ancient world, it's clear that while the specifics varied from culture to culture, there were some common threads. In many ways, these ancient magical practices were early attempts at science, medicine, and psychology. As the fire crackles softly and our journey through time comes to a close, I hope these tales of ancient magic have lulled you into a peaceful state. Hey there, night owls and history buffs. Tonight, we're delving into the mysterious world of witchcraft in ancient civilizations. Before we begin our journey through time, take a moment to settle in. Maybe light a candle, wrap yourself in a cozy blanket, and let the gentle crackle of our virtual fireplace wash over you. Long before the infamous Salem witch trials or the European witch hunts of the Middle Ages, ancient civilizations grappled with the concept of magic and those who wielded it. If you're enjoying these nightly excursions into the past, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. The Babylonians, for instance, didn't view all magic as inherently evil. They distinguished between benevolent magic, used for healing and protection, and malevolent sorcery, which was feared and punished. They created elaborate amulets and talismans to ward off malevolent forces. Here, we find a society that both revered and feared the power of magic. The Greek goddess Hecate was associated with witchcraft, crossroads, and the night, a powerful and ambiguous figure who could both help and harm. One particularly intriguing practice was the use of execration texts, curses written on pottery or figurines, then ritually destroyed to enact the curse on enemies of the state. The Code of Hammurabi, one of the earliest known legal codes, even included laws addressing accusations of witchcraft. The Roman writer Horace tells us of Canidia, a witch who prowled graveyards at night, collecting bones and herbs for her spells. These stories reflect a belief in the power of nature and the blurred lines between the human and spirit worlds. The Atharva Veda, one of the four Vedas or sacred texts of Hinduism, contains numerous spells and incantations for everything from curing diseases to winning battles. Kazi and ascetics were believed to gain supernatural powers through their spiritual practices, blurring the line between mysticism and magic. Whether through science, religion, or magic, we continue to seek ways to influence our fate and make sense of the mysteries of existence. Imagine a moonlit forest, the shadows shifting unnaturally, a flash of red fur. Was it just a fox or something more? From the ziggurats of Babylon to the temples of Egypt, from the agoras of Greece to the forests of ancient China, magic has been a constant companion to human civilization. Good night, sleep tight, and don't let the witches bite. Until next time, history lovers. Many of the practices and beliefs of these ancient civilizations have echoes in modern witchcraft and neo-pagan movements. Before we go, remember that the next time you see a full moon, or walk past an old graveyard, or feel a sudden chill on a warm night, experiencing something that our ancestors felt thousands of years ago. The world is still full of mystery and magic if we only know where to look. The use of herbs, the creation of protective amulets, the belief in the power of words and intentions. All these have roots stretching back thousands of years. Many Roman emperors consulted astrologers and diviners, even as they passed laws restricting such practices among the general population. Can you hear the whisper of her robes as she moves silently among the tombstones? The moonlight casting eerie shadows? And, hey, drop a comment letting me know where you're retuning in from and what time it is for you. Or Medea, whose magical abilities aided Jason in his quest for the Golden Fleece, but who later used those same powers for revenge. Here, we find a culture where magic and science were often indistinguishable. The concept of ki, or life force, underpinned both magical and medical practices. Taoist priests were known for their abilities to communicate with spirits, exorcise demons, and manipulate the forces of nature. These stories reflect the Greek attitude towards magic, a force that could be both beneficial and destructive, depending on who wielded it and for what purpose. It's always fascinating to see our global community coming together in the quiet hours. The line between religion and magic was blurred, with priests often doubling as magicians. The famous Egyptian Book of the Dead was essentially a collection of spells and incantations meant to guide the deceased through the afterlife. Can you picture the intricate hieroglyphs adorning the walls of a pharaoh's tomb? Each symbol a magical protection against the perils of the underworld. Now, let's dim the lights, take a deep breath, and allow ourselves to be transported back to a time when magic and mystery ruled the ancient world. Witchcraft, that enigmatic practice that has both fascinated and terrified humanity for millennia, its roots that stretch far back into the mists of time. In ancient Mesopotamia, the cradle of civilization, witchcraft was a complex and nuanced part of daily life. Imagine, if you will, the bustling streets of ancient Babylon, the air thick with the scent of incense and spices, the sound of merchants haggling in the marketplace. And there, in a small, dimly lit shop, a wise woman mixing herbs and chanting softly, her customers seeking everything from love potions to cures for ailments. This was the reality of magic in the ancient world, not always hidden, not always feared, but woven into the very fabric of society. Moving our gaze to ancient Egypt, we find a culture where magic was not only accepted, but celebrated. But it wasn't all benign. The Egyptians also feared the power of curses and evil magic. As we drift further into our historical slumber, let's turn our attention to the ancient Greeks. Greek mythology is rife with tales of powerful sorceresses. Take Circe, for instance, who famously turned Odysseus's men into pigs. In ancient Rome, attitudes towards witchcraft were similarly complex. While official Roman religion included many magical elements, private magical practices were often viewed with suspicion. The Romans had laws against harmful magic, but distinguishing between acceptable religious practices and illegal sorcery was often a matter of perspective. As we continue our drowsy exploration of ancient witchcraft, let's journey to the Far East, to ancient China. Chinese folklore is filled with tales of fox spirits, capable of shape-shifting and bewitching humans. In ancient India, magic was deeply intertwined with religious practices. As our eyelids grow heavy and our thoughts drift deeper into the past, let's consider the legacy of these ancient magical traditions. But perhaps the most enduring legacy is the human desire to understand and control the unseen forces of the world around us. As we slowly surface from our historical reverie, take a moment to reflect on the long and complex history of witchcraft. The crackling of our virtual fireplace is growing softer now, the flames dimming as we prepare to return to the present. And with that thought, I'll leave you to drift off into your own dreams of ancient sorcerers and forgotten spells. In the next story, we're diving into the cozy world of folklore, where we'll unravel the origins of some beloved childhood figures. Now, picture this, a world where losing a tooth wasn't just a biological milestone, but a magical event. That nocturnal visitor who swaps teeth for coins didn't always flutter through our collective imagination. This pint-sized, dental-obsessed sprite is a relatively modern invention. The concept of a tooth fairy, as we know it today, only began to take shape in the early 20th century. Before the tooth fairy, cultures around the world had their own traditions for dealing with lost baby teeth. In some European countries, children would throw their lost teeth onto the roof, hoping for a new tooth to grow in its place. In other parts of the world, teeth were buried, hidden, or even fed to animals. The idea was often tied to hopes for strong, healthy adult teeth. The first literary mention of something resembling our modern tooth fairy appeared in a 1908 play called The Tooth Fairy by Esther Watkins Arnold. But it wasn't until the 1920s and 1930s that the idea really started to take flight, so to speak. As with many folklore traditions, the tooth fairy evolved gradually, influenced by a mix of older myths, changing social norms, and a dash of marketing magic. Now, let's turn our attention to a figure who's a bit more robust. Santa Claus, that jolly old elf, has a history as long and winding as his Christmas Eve journey. The modern image of Santa Claus, rotund, rosy-cheeked, and clad in red, is a far cry from his earliest incarnations. The story of Santa Claus begins with Saint Nicholas, a 4th century Christian bishop known for his generosity and gift-giving. Over centuries, the legend of Saint Nicholas spread across Europe, evolving and adapting to local cultures. In some places, he became Sinterklaas, in others, Father Christmas. Each iteration added new elements to the growing mythology. The transformation from Saint Nicholas to Santa Claus took a significant leap in 19th century America. Writers and artists began to shape the image of Santa that we know today. Clement Clark Moore's 1823 poem, A Visit from St. Nicholas, gave us the reindeer-driving, chimney-climbing Santa, and in the 1860s, Cartoonist Thomas Nast's illustrations in Harper's Weekly further cemented Santa's appearance. But it wasn't until the 1930s that Santa got his final makeover, courtesy of a soft drink company, Coca-Cola's holiday advertisements, featuring artwork by Haddon Sundblom, popularized the image of Santa as a warm, grandfatherly figure in a red suit trimmed with white fur. This marketing campaign had such a profound impact that it effectively standardized Santa's appearance in the public imagination. As we drift deeper into our exploration of folklore, let's pause for a moment. Key, take a deep breath. Feel the weight of your body sinking into your bed. Let the gentle crackling of our fireplace wash over you. These stories, these figures from our collective imagination, they're like a soft blanket of cultural memory wrapping around us, connecting us to generations past and future. Now, let's turn our drowsy attention to another figure of folklore, the Easter Bunny. This egg-laying rabbit is a curious blend of Christian tradition and pagan symbolism. The exact origins of the Easter Bunny are a bit fuzzy, much like the creature itself, but we can trace some of its history back to pre-Christian fertility festivals. In many ancient cultures, rabbits and hares were associated with springtime, new life, and fertility. As Christianity spread across Europe, these older traditions often merged with newer religious observances. The rabbit's connection to Easter likely came from German Lutherans in the 17th century. They brought with them the tradition of the Osterhase, or Easter hare, who would judge whether children had been good or bad at the start of the Easter season. When German immigrants came to America in the 18th century, they brought this tradition with them. Over time, the Easter hare evolved into the Easter Bunny, and the custom of leaving out carrots for the bunny transformed into the modern-day Easter egg hunt. Speaking of transformations, let's drift over to the world of Halloween and the jack-o'-lantern. These grinning, glowing pumpkins are a staple of modern Halloween celebrations, but their origins lie in an old Irish folktale about a man named Stingy Jack. According to the legend, Stingy Jack repeatedly tricked the devil, but his cleverness came at a price. When Jack died, he was denied entry to both heaven and hell. The devil, as a parting gift, gave Jack a burning coal to light his way as he roamed the earth for eternity. Jack placed the coal in a carved-out turnip, and thus the jack-o'-lantern was born. When Irish immigrants came to America, they brought this tradition with them. However, they found that pumpkins, native to America, were far easier to carve than turnips. And so, the pumpkin jack-o'-lantern became a Halloween staple. As we near the end of our journey through folklore, let's take a moment to appreciate how these stories and traditions have evolved over time. They're like rivers, flowing from the past into the present, picking up new elements along the way, but always retaining something of their original essence. The leprechaun, that mischievous figure from Irish folklore, is another character who's undergone quite a transformation in popular culture. Originally depicted as grumpy, solitary creatures dressed in red, leprechauns have become jolly, green-clad symbols of Ireland and good luck. In traditional Irish folklore, leprechauns were skilled shoemakers who kept their earnings in a hidden pot of gold. The modern image of leprechauns, with their green outfits and lucky charms, is largely an American invention, shaped by early 20th century films and marketing campaigns. As our eyelids grow heavy and our thoughts begin to drift, let's reflect on how these folklore figures, these products of our collective imagination, continue to captivate us. They're more than just stories or traditions. They're bridges between generations, between cultures, between the real and the magical. It's a tooth fairy, Santa Claus, the Easter Bunny, jack-o'-lanterns, leprechauns. They're all part of the rich tapestry of human creativity and storytelling. They remind us of the power of imagination, the comfort of tradition, and the joy of believing in a little magic. As the fire crackles softly in the background and your breathing becomes slow and steady, remember that these stories, these figures of folklore, are always there. They're waiting in the corners of our imagination, ready to bring a spark of wonder to our lives. no matter how old we are. So, as you drift off to sleep, surrounded by the gentle warmth of our virtual fireplace, let these tales of folklore be your lullaby. May they inspire sweet dreams of magical beings, hidden treasures, and endless possibilities. Good night, sleep tight, and don't let the bed bugs bite. Unless, of course, they're folklore bed bugs with their own fascinating origin story. But that, my dear sleepy friends, is a tale for another night. In the depths of history, rituals have been the backbone of human societies, guiding our ancestors through life's most significant moments. These ancient practices, often shrouded in mystery, held meanings far beyond what meets the eye. Tonight, we'll unravel some of these enigmatic customs, their origins, and the profound impact they had on the people who performed them. Let's begin with the intriguing ritual of the Egyptian opening of the mouth ceremony. This elaborate funerary practice was believed to restore the deceased senses, allowing them to eat, drink, and breathe in the afterlife. They believed that without this ritual, their loved one would be unable to enjoy the pleasures of the afterlife, forever trapped in a state of sensory deprivation. The air, thick with the scent of burning laurel leaves and barley meal, the sound of rushing water from the nearby Castalian spring, creating a hypnotic backdrop. While it may seem barbaric to our modern sensibilities, to the Maya, it was a sacred act of utmost importance. Picture a cloudless sky, the sun beating down on the limestone steps as priests, adorned in elaborate headdresses and jade jewelry, led the chosen victim to the altar. The crowd below would watch in hushed awe as the ritual unfolded. With practiced precision, the priest would plunge an obsidian blade into the victim's chest, swiftly removing the still beating heart. Imagine the quiet dedication of these women, tending the fire day and night, year after year. She would be buried alive in a small underground chamber with only a few days' worth of food and water. This festival marked the end of the harvest season and the beginning of the darker half of the year. Elves believed that on this night, the veil between the world of the living and the dead was at its thinnest. It was believed that her death would appease the gods and prevent disaster from befalling the city. This practice, dating back to the Shang dynasty, involved posing questions to the ancestors or gods and interpreting the cracks that appeared in heated animal bones or turtle shells. This severe punishment underscores the immense importance Romans placed on ritual purity and the maintenance of cosmic order. The questions and answers were meticulously recorded, providing us with invaluable insights into the concerns and beliefs of ancient Chinese society. Despite their differences, they all speak to fundamental human needs: the desire for understanding, for connection with the divine, for guidance in an uncertain world. These rituals provided our ancestors with a sense of order and meaning, helping them make sense of the mysteries of life and death. It's a fascinating glimpse into how our ancestors sought to navigate the uncertainties of life, finding reassurance in the wisdom of those who had gone before. We still seek answers to life's big questions, still yearn for connection with something greater than ourselves. I hope these tales of ancient rituals have lulled you into a peaceful state. Let the gentle crackle of the embers and the soft whisper of history guide you into a deep, restful sleep. And remember, no matter where or when we live, we're all part of the grand tapestry of human experience, connected by our shared hopes, fears, and dreams. Perhaps, in exploring these ancient rituals, we can gain a deeper appreciation for our shared human heritage and the timeless quest for meaning that unites us all. A diviner, his face illuminated by flickering flames, carefully prepares a piece of ox scapula or turtle plastron. He carves the question into the bone, then applies heat to create cracks. With practiced eyes, he studies the patterns formed, deciphering messages from the spirit world. The gentle crackle of the flames, the soft rustle of their white robes, the weight of an entire empire's fate resting on their shoulders. They believed that human blood was the ultimate offering to the gods, necessary to ensure the continuation of the world. Bonfires dot the landscape, their flames leaping high into the darkening sky. The Celts left food offerings for the dead and set extra places at their tables for departed loved ones. They believed that the spirits of the deceased could return to visit on this night, bringing messages from the other world. Hey, it's a beautiful reminder of how our ancestors sought to maintain connections with those who had passed on. Finding comfort in the cyclical nature of life and death, people gather around these fires, wearing animal skins and masks to confuse evil spirits. They share food and drink, tell stories of their ancestors, and perform divination rituals to glimpse the future. The Mayans saw it not as murder, but as a noble death, one that guaranteed the victim a place of honor in the afterlife. It's a stark reminder of how differently our ancestors viewed life, death, and the nature of sacrifice. 8. It's a scene that captures the profound reverence our ancestors held for the divine, their unwavering belief in forces beyond their understanding. These were priestesses dedicated to Vesta, the goddess of the hearth. Chosen from noble families at a young age, they were sworn to 30 years of chastity and service. Their primary duty was to tend the sacred fire in the temple of Vesta, ensuring it never went out. It's a poignant reminder of how deeply our ancestors cared for their dead, their beliefs extending far beyond the boundaries of mortality. Imagine, if you will, the hushed anticipation as priests gathered around a mummy, carefully touching various parts of the face with special instruments. Each gesture, each whispered incantation was thought to breathe life back into the departed soul. The ceremony could last for hours, sometimes days, with family members watching in solemn silence. As we drift further into the past, let's turn our attention to the ancient Greek practice of consulting the Oracle of Delphi. Perched high on the slopes of Mount Parnassus, the temple of Apollo was home to the Pythia, a priestess believed to channel the voice of the gods. People from all walks of life, from farmers to kings, would make the arduous journey to seek her wisdom. The ritual itself was shrouded in mystery. The Pythia would enter a small chamber beneath the temple, where she'd sit on a tripod above a chasm in the earth. Intoxicated by vapors rising from the ground, she'd fall into a trance-like state, uttering cryptic prophecies that were then interpreted by priests. These enigmatic messages could determine the fate of entire nations, guiding decisions on everything from crop planting to waging war. Imagine the tension, the anticipation, as supplicants waited for their turn to approach the oracle. Now, let's journey across the ocean to the ancient Mayan civilization and their ritual of human sacrifice. The most common form of sacrifice took place atop their towering pyramids. This act, as gruesome as it may seem, was believed to feed the gods and maintain the cosmic order. Shifting our focus to ancient Rome, let's explore the fascinating ritual of the Vestal Virgins. The ritual of maintaining this eternal flame was believed to be crucial for the well-being of Rome itself. If a Vestal Virgin broke her vow of chastity, the consequences were dire. As we continue our journey through time, let's pause to consider the ancient Celtic ritual of Samhain, the precursor to our modern Halloween. Picture a crisp autumn evening, the air filled with the scent of burning leaves and roasting meat. This was a time of both celebration and solemn remembrance. Now, let's travel to ancient China and explore the intriguing ritual of oracle-boned divination. Imagine a dimly lit chamber filled with the acrid smell of smoke. These oracle bones were used to seek guidance on everything from military campaigns to agricultural decisions. As we near the end of our journey tonight, let's reflect on the common threads that run through these ancient rituals. In our modern world, we may have moved away from many of these practices, but the impulse that drove them remains.